I grew up in Houston, Texas, which is now a big city. At one time, Houston was the largest city in the world in terms of square miles, not population, but size. Houston had 3 daily newspapers. All American newspapers, as you probably know, have comic strips, all with the exception of the New York Times, which has no comic strips. But I learned to reading the comic strips in the Houston Post and the Houston Press. My favorite was Dick Tracy, because it was so weird. The bad guys were so bad in Dick Tracy. I loved it. And Smilin' Jack by Zach Mosley, because he could draw airplanes so well. That was about the only notable thing about Smilin' Jack. And Nancy by Ernie Bushmiller, which was never funny, but it was so simple and easy to read. I had to read it anyway. It only took 2 seconds to read Nancy. And I would copy Dick Tracy. I could, by the time I was 6 years old, I could probably draw as well as Chester Gould, the artist of Dick Tracy. His artwork is, well, it's a graphic style. It wasn't accurate. And the characters in Dick Tracy had automobiles, and they would. Hot Rod was one of the bad guys. He would raise the bonnet of his car and say, and this is a supercharger, but Chester Gould didn't know what a supercharger looked like. It was just a bunch of square lines and boxes in there. I thought that was funny.
We didn't see those comics really over in this side. I was only aware of them through Mad Magazine, through the parodies of Smilin' Jack and so on. I didn't know anything about those.
And I did a parody of Smilin' Jack, Smilin' Mylin, in the Freak Brothers.
Yes.
But at any rate, I would copy Dick Tracy. Did you have Dick Tracy over here?
As I say, I only knew them through Mad. Vaguely aware that they existed, but only like through the Penguin Book of Comics and that sort of thing. We didn't get them published here.
Well, Dick Tracy, the film of Dick Tracy, they had the wrong guy for Dick Tracy, Warren Beatty.
Warren Beatty, of course,
he was too young, too handsome.
He didn't have a square enough chin.
No, but they should have had Kirk Douglas.
Yeah, he would have done it.
Yeah. But anyway, there's never, hardly ever been a successful film based on a comic strip. Mm-hmm. As I said, Dick Tracy was, except for the few seconds that Dustin Hoffman appeared, Warren Beatty didn't make it.
What other films was there? What have we had?
Little Abner was good.
I never knew there was a film of Little Abner.
Little Abner by Al Capp. Al Capp, well, that was a great comic strip until poor Al Capp he was a progressive when he was young, but he got mugged in his town of Washington, D.C. by a couple of long-haired white guys. And this turned him against hippies. And he became suddenly an arch conservative. And
He famously argued with John Lennon and Yoko Ono. In
that
the
filmed interview with John Lennon. John Lennon finally said, "I don't have to put up with this shit. Get this guy out of here."
He was insulting to Yoko.
He insulted. "How can you stand to live with this thing?"
Yeah.
Said Al Cap about Yoko Ono. And he did a parody of Joan Baez called Joni Phony. And he did a parody of Robert Crumb. Just 2 pages, but he called him Henry the 1/8, who was 1/8 the man of that his father was, referring to Robert Crumb's father was a professional soldier.
Yeah. So you were copying these comics, and then as you got older, you started doing your own comics. Where was your illustrations coming from?
Yeah, I started doing comics. The first thing I remember was Doggy the Dog, but I don't have any copies of Doggy the Dog when I was 6, 7 years old.
I'm not going to ask if you can still draw Doggy the Dog, because you'll be inundated by people saying, "Draw us Doggy the Dog."
No, I don't remember even. He was sort of square. He had a nose like Disney. You know the story about the copy. Disney claimed that the European cartoonist, I can't think of his name right now, very, very famous European cartoonist, drew a nose like Disney's animals had, and Disney sued him and said, that style nose belongs to me, Walt Disney. And the European cartoonist had to go back and erase the noses of all his drawings so that he wouldn't be sued by Disney with his 500 lawyers.
So what came after that?
I
did
did
college in Boston, weren't you?
a naval cadet when I was in military school, in prep school. Don't have any. I don't even remember what he looked like. He looked like me, I suppose.